Okay, we'll go ahead and get this Tooele City Planning Commission meeting to order this Wednesday, November 13th, 2024 at the hour of 7 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The first item on our agenda tonight is our Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second item on our agenda tonight is our roll call. Commissioner Hammer?
Here.
Commissioner Proctor?
Here.
Commissioner Robinson?
Here.
Commissioner Jensen?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I am also here. Let's please excuse Councilman Sloan, Councilman Dunn, or Commissioners Sloan and Commissioner Dunn. I can get this right tonight, I promise. Recognize Council Member Hanson, staff members Mr. Agard, Shiloh Baker, and Michelle Pitt taking our minutes tonight. Number 3 on our agenda tonight is our public hearing and a recommendation on a land use map amendment request by Wagstaff Investments to change the land use designation for approximately 2.1 acres located at the northeast corner of Franks Drive and 1000 North from regional commercial to community commercial. Mr. Agard.
Thank you, Commissioners. This land use map amendment is for the property highlighted in red on the aerial photograph. It's at the northeast corner of the intersection of 600 West and 1000 North. You're probably familiar with this as it was amended about 2 years ago from medium-high density residential to regional commercial. And that was in order to facilitate a zoning change to regional commercial at the time. The current land use designation is regional commercial, and the applicant wishes to amend that designation to what we call community commercial. The community commercial land use designation is a designation that is oriented more to local commercial activities instead of regional commercial activities. And the purpose behind this request is they have encountered some difficulty fitting their current proposal on the property due to some large landscape buffers that the regional commercial zone requires. The regional commercial zone requires a 30-foot landscape buffer on the front yard instead of a 15-foot. And at the time, when they did the zoning map amendment 2 years ago, they weren't aware of that landscape buffer that is required by the regional commercial zone. The reason the regional commercial zone requires that is because the regional commercial zone is oriented towards large-scale commercial uses, business parks, educational parks, commercial activities that would have space to accommodate a large landscape requirement such as that. This is a 2-acre parcel, a gas station, probably is not necessarily fitting for regional commercial. So in order to facilitate a zoning change to general commercial, we must first amend the land use map to community commercial, as our ordinance requires the zoning map to comply with the land use map. So that is why this is here before you tonight, to change that zoning to help facilitate the development of the property as a gasoline convenience store with gasoline services. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. I believe the applicant's here as well.
Okay, appreciate that. Let's bring it back to the commission for any other further questions, comments. All right, this item does require a public hearing. If the applicant here tonight, I'll give you some time after the public hearing. If you'd like to address the commission, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. All right, with that being said, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing now. If you'd like to speak to this item, please approach the podium, state your name for the audible record, and write your name. I don't know if there's a paper there. Michelle's got one back there. Okay, sweet. Paper right over here to sign your name. All right, seeing no one approach, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item. And if that, invite the applicant up, would you like to address this?
Yeah, just real briefly. So I just want to say thanks to Andrew. We've been working with him for a couple of years, and I think this is more of our fault of just rushing. 2 years ago when we were trying to get it rezoned from high density to commercial, we thought, oh, regional commercial sounds a little better. And then when we started playing with the site plan, that's when we realized some of the setbacks are a little tricky for us. So yeah, just appreciate it. And if there's any questions I can answer, I can be glad to do so as well.
Any questions for the applicant from the commission? No. All right, thank you, sir.
Okay,
appreciate it. All right, we'll bring this back to the commission for further action.
Mr. Chair, I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Holiday Oil Land Use Map Amendment request at 1000 North Franks Drive to the Community Commercial Land Use designation based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated 3 November 2024.
I got a positive recommendation from Commissioner Robinson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And a second from Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Sorry, guys. Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
And I vote aye. This one passes with a positive recommendation going up to the City Council. I've just got alarms going off at my store, so we're okay. I'd like to recognize Councilwoman Manzione, too. She was able to attend with us tonight. Number 4 on our agenda tonight is a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning map amendment request by Wagstaff Investments to reassign the zoning for approximately 2.1 acres located at the northeast corner of Franks Drive and 1000 North from RC Regional Commercial to GC General Commercial.
Thank you, Commissioners. I typically don't put zoning map amendments on the same agenda with a land use map amendment. However, in this case, the use of the property really is the same. It's just, we're just dealing with the scale of the commercial activities. So I hope you don't mind me throwing these on the same agenda. It's the same property as before mentioned. Subject property is currently zoned regional commercial. The applicant is asking for general commercial for reasons already described. Yeah, that's about all I have to say on that. So if you have any questions, I can answer them for you.
Okay, let's bring this back to the commission for questions or comments. All right, thank you, Mr. Agard. This one also does require a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open that public hearing now. If you'd like to speak to this item, please approach the podium. Okay, seeing no one approach, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item and bring it back to the commission for further action.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Yes, Commissioner Jensen.
I move we forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Holiday Oil Zoning Map Amendment request by Brent Neal, representing Wagstaff Investments LLC, reassigning 2 acres located at 1000 North Franks Drive to the GC General Commercial Zoning District, application number P22-1238, based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report dated December. I have my motions not right.
No?
I should have read through it before I read it.
You want to redo it?
Yeah, if I can get through this in my head. I'll make a motion, we approve the application for zoning map amendment request, application number 2024-057 by Brent Neal, representing Wagstaff Investments LLC, 1000 North Franks Drive, to the regional commercial zone.
All right, I got a positive recommendation from Commissioner Jensen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Commissioner Hammer. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. That one passes with a positive recommendation going up to the City Council. Moving on to number 5 on our agenda tonight is a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning map amendment request by Amy Johnson to reassign the zoning for approximately 4.9 acres located at approximately 105 East, 1000 North from RR1 residential to MUG mixed use general. Mr. Agard.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. This zoning map amendment is a little more complicated than the previous one. You are familiar with the property as we recently went through the land use map amendment. It does impact the property highlighted in red on the aerial photograph and is immediately north of 1000 North and east of SR 36 Main Street. There are some residential homes located to the east, along with the property where the new city fire station is going to be constructed. And then there's some industrial uses located to the north. The current zoning of the property is RR1, which is residential, rural residential, 1 acre lots. And the current land use designation of the property is mixed use. The mixed use land use designation does authorize the consideration of both the mixed-use general and the mixed-use Broadway zoning districts. However, the mixed-use Broadway zone is geographically specific to the Broadway area, so it's not necessarily a candidate for this property. However, the mixed-use general zone is not geographically specific, and therefore it would be a candidate for this property. The mixed-use general zone is the city's most liberal zone. It allows just about everything. In the mixed-use general, you can do a wide range of commercial activities. You can do just about every kind of residential activity. You can do single-family, duplexes, townhouses, and apartment buildings with a density limitation of 16 units per acre. So it is a very wide-ranging zone and does have a lot of uses. The mixed-use general zone does permit mixed uses in a building. So you could have commercial uses on the ground floor with residential uses on the upper floors. That's about all the mixed-use general zone says in regards to that type of use. It does not get into any other details. So it permits that type of living situation with commercial underneath, but it doesn't really get into any other details. It's kind of vague in that regard. The applicant is proposing a development that would involve the construction of townhomes with a business on the ground floor and a residential unit on the upper floor. It is intended that the owner of the business would live in the upper floor unit, however, doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And the applicant could probably address that more effectively than I can. So a rezone to mixed-use general would comply with the recently amended land use map amendment. However, I need to emphasize that by rezoning to the mixed-use general, anything in that zone could go on this property. So the applicant could walk away and sell it, and we're looking at a totally different type of land use. There are some alternatives that we could look at. However, I would leave that up to the applicant to decide how they want to proceed with that. It's not staff's responsibility to write those things. We're here to assist and to advise as needed. But the request is for mixed-use general, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Okay, let's bring this back to the commission for questions.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Hammer.
You said there could be some alternatives. Did you, like what?
There's a lot of different alternatives that we could pursue. We could look at amending the mixed-use general zone and put some language in there that does provide a little more criteria for this type of use. We could look at writing an entirely new zone or maybe a zoning overlay district. The applicant has mentioned doing a development agreement that is specific to this site. However, the city has not had a lot of luck with development agreements in the past, so I don't know if the city council is open to that type of a situation at this time. But those are some of the alternatives that we could look at. We don't have to go with just a blanket mixed-use general. There are other things that we could pursue. And I do want to emphasize that the Planning Commission has every ability and right to table or continue this item if you feel like you are not in a position where you're ready to forward a recommendation to the City Council. So just make your recommendation to table or continue either goal-specific or date-specific.
I actually have some comments.
Yes, Commissioner
And
Anderson.
I'll probably have some questions as well. I know that the city council was concerned about access points, getting in and out of that property, and what a right in or right out. My response to that is, when do we start requiring a backdoor exit to a property or a development? Because we haven't done that at 2400 North or at 34 or 3100 North. They were also concerned about the mixed-use general zoning, and I think that that's an appropriate concern. But in terms of expediency, how do we get this approved for the applicant as quickly as possible? And is that an overlay? Is an overlay to that zone the appropriate route?
In terms of expediting the process, I don't know how we could do that and make it quick. It's going to take some time to write up the proposed changes and then go through the process of getting those ratified. It's not a quick process in any situation. You could make a recommendation with a condition and then move it on to the city council. That is definitely within the planning commission's purview to do. Does that, and in regards to the best way to proceed with an overlay or changing the MUG zone or development agreement, I don't know. Any one of those alternatives could work. It's just,
I feel that we're holding up an applicant where we should be looking at promoting the applicant's desire. I get why we're doing that, and I understand the necessity of it, because I certainly don't want them to sell it and then something completely different end up on that piece of property.
yeah.
But how do we get there? And what's the most expeditious way of getting there?
Yeah, I think if, the fastest way to move it on would be to make a recommendation with a condition. But then the city council then has to deal with reviewing the specifics of whatever method we choose to go with on that. So I don't see a fast way other than just recommending the mixed-use general, moving it forward. I really don't.
Can I ask a question of the city council members, maybe? What was the, what were the issues, if you guys remember, from the last time this came through? What were the?
I had lots of questions about this. The same questions that you guys have. Mixed-use general lets anything be there, and I didn't really want that to be the case. I didn't think that was what we wanted as a council. But they mentioned a development agreement, which I don't understand that very good. If that could just, because I'm for what they want to do. I'm not for just making it mixed-use general. So I mentioned, do we change the zone and make it zone specific? We've done that before. Not really a fan of just zoning one spot, but do we do that, or is there some kind of other agreement that can be done to make it so that that's what they can build?
I would agree. That was the gist of the conversation. Everybody's in favor of the development itself. I mean, there's always a concern of the traffic, but like Commissioner Anderson said, you can't really, I mean, what can you do about that, per se? But the mixed use general leaves it just wide open. And that was the bulk of the discussion, is it does. And so is a development agreement the best way to go? I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but that's me, but we haven't had a lot of luck with those in the past. So that is a concern for some people, but we thought there could probably be a better type of zone or some sort of overlay or agreement to make it suit their needs and the city's needs.
And in the past, before, I've done exactly, we gave them the mixed-use general, and then it got sold and something completely different happened.
Yeah.
It was a mistake. And to look back on it's a mistake. I'm assuming they're going to do what they're going to do, but if it didn't happen, I'd rather change it so that they're going to build what they're going to build somehow, if that takes us a couple months longer than it does.
Because we felt like it was actually a good spot for what they're proposing, and less traffic than would be some other things.
Yeah.
Would an overlay require a development agreement?
No, an overlay would be just a zoning map amendment. We would just basically write a new zoning code that can only be attached to the mixed-use general zone.
Sorry, follow up to the mixed-use zoning, or just this piece?
To the mixed-use general zone.
Okay. And then, sorry, I have another question.
No, we lost her
My camera
mic.
went off, I mean,
Yeah.
my microphone went off.
Give us just a minute. We lost her mic, so. Somebody put another quarter in the machine.
Are we back?
We're back. Yes, Commissioner Hammer, please continue.
For a development agreement, who writes that?
So a development agreement is basically a contract between the city and the developer. So because this is an application presented by the developer, they would present us with the agreement. And then we would review it through staff, through the city attorney, through the planning commission, and then ultimately the city council would be the one that either accepts or denies the agreement. But what it does is it just spells out specific development criteria. The city basically agrees to give them the zoning and the ability to construct, but they have to do what's in that agreement. The advantage is it's site specific. And the disadvantage, well, we've had issues with development agreements in the past. Cost the city a lot of money. Now, that was a big project and had a lot of involvement with various agencies. This is not a large project like that. And it could be something relatively simple, just an agreement with, I don't know, 3 or 4 criteria. Doesn't have to be a long one either.
Which would be faster, to do a development agreement or to do an overlay for this area?
I think it takes the same amount of time. In fact, I think the development agreement might take longer because it's going to require some work sessions
Going back and forth.
to go back and forth and see if the planning commission and council are in favor of what's in that agreement.
And who writes the overlay?
The applicant would present again the language they'd like to see in the overlay, and it would again go through the review process. So because it's the application submitted by the applicant, the onus is upon them to write it.
And so it would be site-specific as well.
An overlay would not be. It would be able to be attached to any property that has the mixed-use general zone. If that's the way we write it. That the other question is, how do we tailor it? How do we write it so it's specific to this site? That's the difficulty with an overlay.
All right, so if we did a mixed-use general Deseret Rose
Overlay.
zone, that would be site-specific, kind of like Broadway is?
Possibly,
Okay.
possibly.
It's kind of sounding like to me there's a lot of work still needs to be done with this one, huh?
The other thing to consider, though, with an overlay is that is still a legislative matter. So the planning commission and city council still have the ultimate control over where those go. So if they don't want it in a section of town because it's a legislative matter, they don't have to put it there.
So looking down the road, any other project wanted to use that overlay, it would still come before the planning commission before it went to the city council?
Yeah, because it'd be treated like a zoning map amendment.
Okay. All right.
Good questions, good comments, good discussion. Any more? All right. Maybe they'll think of more after the public hearing. All right, this item does require a public hearing. If the applicant is here tonight, we'll just have you hold off till the end of the public hearing, and then you can address the commission. All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this particular item. If you would please approach the podium, write your name for the record, state your name for the record. All right, seeing no one approach, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this particular item and invite the applicant in if he'd like to address the commission.
Good evening, Commissioners. Steve Garrett here on behalf of Desert Rose. Just a couple of things to note here. When we looked at this property, we determined that this was really the most viable thing to put here. So from our perspective, we wouldn't be looking to do anything else besides what's proposed. The other thing is, we would feel best if it was zoning, the approved zone with the condition of the development agreement, because if this is turned into its own zone, then you're left with maybe some loopholes in the zoning that's created specifically for this. like what happened with the Holiday Oil deal right before me, where there's some things that had to be changed because they didn't fit that particular criteria for setbacks and that. This zoning does fit with what it is, but then the development agreement could be approved at the same time that defines and limits and makes sure the scope of this doesn't creep out what's been envisioned. So that was all I had. Did you guys have any questions for me?
Commission have any questions for the applicant?
So you're okay if a development agreement takes longer than any other process?
Well, I certainly understand where everybody's at on this. I mean, you guys don't want to approve something and it doesn't look anything like what you think. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I could see your concerns on all those. Those are actually wise concerns. So, I mean, it takes what it takes, right? So,
All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, Mr. Garrett, appreciate it. Okay, let's bring this back to the commission. Any other further questions, comments, discussion?
I'm wondering what would be, I understand there's a lot of different things that can go into the mixed-use general zoning. I mean, to me, maybe the worst thing would be, you said you go up to 16 units per acre, so that's 60-something units you could put there, which is obviously too much for that corner, if somebody changed it and wanted to just do apartments or something. But, I mean, there's also rules in there, would they be able to do that? Because they only have one in and one out, don't you have to have, I don't remember the rule for like fire truck access. If there's over so many units, you have to have another way in and stuff like that. I don't want to stop them from doing it, but besides a lot of small housing units, I don't see what else would be a problem there myself.
Yes, good discussion. Any other questions? This is a tough one.
It is.
Okay, here are no further questions. I'll entertain a motion on this one.
Chair, I'll make a motion that we, for a positive recommendation, that we move forward a positive recommendation to City Council for the Desert Rose Business Loft Zoning Map Amendment request to rezone it to MUG, mixed use general, with the condition that there is an overlay done for that property.
Okay, I've got a positive recommendation from Commissioner Anderson with the condition that an overlay is done for this specific property. Do I have a second?
Well,
That doesn't fly, Kelly.
Can we have this?
My
Yes, we can
concern,
discuss this.
okay, I'll say my piece. Conceptually and theoretically, this is awesome. It's a funky piece of land. This is a great concept. I think it will work out very well there. But conversely, I think it is necessary that somehow we protect ourselves so that we don't get into situations where we've been in the past. Recognizing that we very well may be getting into those situations with a development agreement. Nonetheless, if the applicant is amenable to a development agreement, and that's okay with what he wants to do, I say we investigate it further. And so I would make a motion that we table this until a development agreement is at least worked on and figured out, and then they can bring it back to us with that agreement, and then that gives us a restart on what all we're going to consider before that zoning is done and proceeds up to the city council. I recognize that it has to go through two levels to get there, and that the city council is the ultimate arbiter of what happens. But I would feel a lot better if I knew what was going to be detailed in this area before I make a recommendation for them to do something. So that's a whole lot of words to make a motion that we table it until we see a development agreement come through.
If I could just add a little point, they've done this type of project in other cities with development agreements. They may be able to really quickly turn that around and bring in a development agreement they've already used. So we could, as staff, we could facilitate that for you.
I'll second Commissioner Robinson.
Well, we're going to bring this back to you. Commissioner Anderson's already made a motion. We've got
It
a
did get
first.
seconded, it dies.
That's where we had a discussion. So do we have a second? Okay, Commissioner Anderson's motion dies, and I will bring this back to the commission for,
I just made my motion.
okay, we got a motion from Commissioner Robinson. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to table this item until a development agreement is in the works and moving forward with exactly what we want.
With what they want,
What
and then you
they
bring that
want.
to us.
Yes, what they want.
And I'll second that.
Okay. And a second from Commissioner Proctor. Any further discussion before we take it to a vote? Give everybody an opportunity.
I'm looking at the time frame still. It's like, can we do this quicker without tabling it? Can we forward a positive recommendation with that as a contingency, as a development agreement contingency?
And I think I'm with Commissioner
We
Robinson. I'd
can,
like to
but
see
I
it.
don't think that the vote's there to do it.
I'd like to see it happen and see some, I'm a visual man.
I'm more on your side a little bit, but with the overlay or whatever, like, we're just asking for it, but like, we're gonna go through it all right now and find out exactly what we want in it? Because we're just asking for it, we're not saying what we want in it. What do we want it
Well,
to say?
that's not up to us, that's up to the city council. So that's why I'm trying to,
That's up to the council and the applicant.
yeah. So is there a way that we speed the process for the city council rather than tabling it and having to come back to us?
Good comment, appreciate that. Any other further discussion before we take this to a vote? All right, the motion on the table right now is that we are going to table this particular item until a development agreement is in the works with the city, so the applicant and the city could both be on the same page. Seconded by Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Hammer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen?
Nay.
Commissioner Anderson?
Nay.
I am Chairman Hamilton. I vote aye. This one is tabled until that further action can be seen and done. All right, moving on to number 6 on our agenda tonight is our city council reports. Councilwoman Manzione.
Hello, I apologize for being late. I am also the liaison to the Arts Council, and it's right before this meeting, so I was trying to watch the time and run down right at the last second, so sorry.
Is that what all the cars in the parking lot are for tonight?
Well, there are only like 9 people
Oh,
there,
then
so.
that's not what it was.
It's probably arts,
Sorry.
there is an art class. That's
Oh,
probably what all
that's
the
probably
cars
what
are
it is,
for.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Party's downstairs after this.
Yeah, so go learn how to watercolor after this meeting. I don't know. Okay, from our meeting, we did discuss this same development for quite a while in our work meeting, so it's good to hear your discussion, and we'll continue to discuss it, it sounds like. So I think the city council does, I'm speaking hopefully for all of them, we appreciate your input. And I mean, that's why we have a planning commission, to get good input and more eyes on our project. So it's appreciated when there's good discussion, and we have that to listen to and to work with as well. So I'll look forward to what you guys agree to. So thank you. And then we also in our work meeting discussed a potential annexation petition. So if that does go forward, then of course that would come to the planning commission as well. So on your radar, it's the Mountain View annexation petition. It's 40 acres off of Smelter Road, 1400 East Smelter Road. And then we updated some old ordinances and paid for a playground at the Settlers Park and some installation of generators at our wells. So that will be really good for the city once we get those installed. And that's all I have to report. Do you have some questions for me?
Any questions for council? No? Thank you, appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you.
All right, number 7 on our agenda tonight is a review and decision. These are the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting held on October 23rd, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I move we approve them as written.
I've got a motion to approve from Commissioner Proctor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Hammer?
Aye.
Commissioner Proctor?
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jensen? Commissioner Anderson?
Aye.
I'm Chairman Hamilton. I also vote aye. Those pass 6-0. Number 8 on our agenda, I will entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, Commissioner Hammer.